Hello, and welcome to the Media Copilot. It's a podcast that explores how AI is changing media, journalism, and content creation. I'm Pete Paschal, longtime tech journalist and founder of the Media Copilot, and I'm excited to bring you fascinating conversations with fellow journalists, media executives, and the people building all the ways we'll create and consume news in the future. Today, I'm excited to talk to Daniel Rascon. Daniel's the co-founder of AnyTopic, an AI startup that can create audio podcasts about, well, any topic. Essentially, you tell the app what you're interested in, anything from medieval architecture to how to get better sleep, and it'll go out and find the most relevant content about that topic, then create a mini audiobook for you to listen to whenever you want. Any topic is like a supercharged version of audio articles. It doesn't do word for word readings of text articles like the Washington Post or the New York Times. This is an advanced version of that, essentially, applied at scale. I'd actually call it a content polymorph, an AI agent designed to search for, interpret, and reformat information around whatever the user specifies. Right now, it's centered around audio experiences, but there's no reason the same idea couldn't be applied to all kinds of formats, potentially giving everyone their own personal media reformatter in the future. Daniel and I explored what that future might look like and how any topic might be the first step in getting there. It was an illuminating conversation. Be sure to listen to the end where we don't shy away from why such a flexible, customizable future might be scary to a lot of people. As always, if you enjoy the convo, I'd encourage you to share it with a friend or a colleague, and I'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing to the Media Copilot newsletter. Links in the show notes. I'd also really appreciate it if you'd leave a rating or review in whatever podcast app you're in. Those really do help the show get to more people. And last, if you want to check out everything we offer, including AI training classes for media, marketing, and PR professionals, head on over to MediaCopilot.ai. Alrighty, now on with the show and my conversation with Daniel Rascon. Daniel, welcome to the Media Copilot.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. So, any topic except fascinates me because it's one of these things that's developing essentially new experiences around consuming content, right? And that's what I'm all about, particularly with AI. And it's doing something that I find really interesting by interpreting content and sort of giving it to you in a more calibrated, customized way. So that's really cool. I want to get into how it works. But first, let's hear about how you sort of started this journey. How did you come up with it? Where did this come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you might have seen, LLMs have changed the way we're creating and consuming content, right? We see a lot of AI generated content on the internet. And what we started thinking at Any Topic, my co founder Sam and I, is we see this future where a lot of the content we'll consume will be touched by AI at some point, right? It can be, today we see this with AI translating to new languages or TikTok videos having an AI voice. Like we're starting to see the early stages of this, but we believe that in the future, this impact will be much higher. And so what we started thinking is that, we believe that human creativity should still be at the core of the content we consume. We don't believe in a future where the internet is just full of this AI generated content. And so what we see the opportunity being here is that the content we'll consume will be personalized and reformatted to you, right? So what this means is that creators will create a content in the format they prefer. This can be a blog, it can be a YouTube video, or whatever you might be interested in. But AI will create this opportunity to reformat and aggregate a few of these sources so consumers can consume that content in their preferred way. And the way we looked at that is audio, right? We believe that there's this huge missed opportunity in audio because a lot of the content that we're consuming today is written in text or in other formats that you can't really be consuming in audio. And so we started looking at how can we turn this content on the internet into a format that, like you're saying, is much more digestible to you in an audio format.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you're touching on a bunch of different things there, and it's funny because you know making it an audio form that takes me back to my old school journalism school days because we learned how to do radio. This is way before even podcasts, but we taught. You learn about the format, and you're like, well, radio has a certain intimacy because it involves the human voice, and it has sort of this level of convenience that no other format has, right? Because, for video, you got to like sit down and look at something, or basically you got to be visually engaged. And so you need to be in a zone you can do that. For text, similarly, you got to be looking at something, you got to be sort of thinking. For audio, you can be like, taking the garbage out. You could be like, doing the dishes. This is a big part of like the rise of podcasts. Obviously, there's a lot of time people spend commuting or whatever, and you can turn that into, what you might call productive time by consuming stuff. But of course, the thing has to be in a podcast format.
Yeah, no,
It's got
absolutely.
to be in that, and not everything is, and more is these days because there's a demand for it. But by adding AI essentially to something that isn't in audio, you're turning it into something you can do in that experience. I mean, it's just really really smart. And a host of questions sort of come up though. So, what is the sort of ideal raw material for this thing? You can get something as short as an article for it to summarize for you, but you can do sort of stuff around broader topics. So, if I'm like, okay, I'm interested in this, I want to get audio, but the stuff I'm interested in audio form, how do I feed it? What do you do? What do you give it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I want to touch on something you mentioned there, which is that, yeah, the audio format is very unique, right? And if you think about it, people have on average at least an hour per day when they can only consume audio. And this is, like you're saying, when you're commuting, doing chores, working out, walking around, like audio is a very unique format that allows you to multitask. You can be doing other things while you're doing audio. And that's not true for video, that's not true for text. And that's the opportunity we saw where podcasts and audiobooks are great today, but they're not personalized to you. They're not
Right.
on specific topics and they can be really long. And we do think podcasts and audiobooks will continue to have their own place, but we see an additional opportunity to, create this new format, which is like more AI driven. And yeah, the way it works today on any topic is we have a web app, we have an iOS app, and everything starts with a topic. What is a topic that you're interested in? And what we do in the background is like, let's find the best sources relevant to your topic, right? And so if you're interested in neuroscience, we might find a research paper, we might find a news article on like a new discovery on neuroscience, like, and we ask you in onboarding, like, okay, what are you interested in learning for neuroscience? Like, are you a neuroscientist? Are you a student? Are you a professional that's just curious about this topic? And so we learn about your preferences and your interest, and we find the content that is relevant to that. And like you're saying, yeah, it depends on what you're looking for, right? Like a lot of times it's text, but it can also be video. There might be a YouTube video that has a clip that's relevant to you, and we use that in audio. And so what's interesting here is that we're not only turning text into audio, that's been done for a long time, right? Like the voice models are better where they sound more human, but we've had text to speech models for a very long time, right? Over 10 years now. But part of what we do here is that we can create a story that can be listened to audio, and that's different because we're not taking the text of the blog and just putting that into speech. We're actually arguing a few of the sources and putting them together in a way that makes sense for you to listen to in 5 minutes.
So this is great because it's really clarifying sort of how it works. And it's like it's more than you think, right? It's a very simple idea and the app I've used it and it's mercifully simple.
Yeah,
I'll say that. You don't have a big hamburger menu with a ton of different options or whatever.
right.
Um, but like you're doing a lot of things, right? Because not only are you doing sort of an AI version of summarization and some kind of text to speech, but you're doing the curation to some extent as well, right?
Yeah.
So you're applying AI at different parts here, and I'd love to sort of just zoom in on both of those, honestly. Like, so the curation part, like how do you do that? Are you using I assume you're using some kind of AI powered search and sort of guiding something. Like, how are you like if someone tells you I'm interested in this topic and I'm sort of at this level, which is probably the minimum of what you need to sort of get something good, then what do you do from there?
Yeah, so our team, my co-founder was at Alexa before, I was at U.com. We both have a background in like search and AI. And that's exactly right. We build these AI agents that first find the content. We looked at least 100 sources per content we generate, like this audio format. But often it can be more than that. And usually we pick like 1 to 10 of these sources to create your what we call mini audiobook. And so what's happening is that we look at the whole content that we're reviewing. So you mentioned neuroscience, right? And we could look at 100 sources from research papers, news article, YouTube videos, blogs, whatever it is. And we review the whole thing. We look at the whole blog, we look at the whole news article. And the AI agent is doing that because there might be a paragraph that's relevant to you. There might be a sentence in a podcast that's relevant to you. Like whatever it is that you're looking for, it might be hidden in this content. And that's why we look at the whole thing to also evaluate what's relevant. And the AI agent ends up picking the most relevant sources. And then we summarize those and reformat them to a short audiobook that you listen to. And so that's kind of like there's a lot of steps to it, but it
Yeah.
starts with the finding, the aggregating, and then the reformatting to, what we give to the user that you listen to.
Yeah, because when I started using it, I think I did sort of the most obvious thing you would do in sort of wrapping my head around it. I just fed it like one article, right? Like, all right, summarize this for me. It was a long article. But it did a good job of essentially making it a little shorter in terms of the overall text, but also still a good sort of representation of what the article said. And I've got some more follow-ups on that on how sort of media companies might think about applying that. But that's just sort of the minimum of what it could do, right? Because then there's a whole sort of part of the curation of sort of mining a topic and bringing you the most relevant stuff very, very quickly. It looks like when I set it up and started doing that and started going like, here are some topics. It's like, okay, hold on, we're going to find something for you. It's going to take a little bit, so come back,
Right.
and you get a notification when it's done. But it didn't take that long. It was like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, so it's sort of an impressive thing. And then once it does that, how does it sort of know the ideal length? You sort of say it's creating an audio book, but have you found sort of a sweet spot in terms of either customer expectation, or is it more dependent on the complexity of the topic? Are there preferences? How do you sort of manage that, like the output? Like what's the sweet spot for any topic? And maybe it varies. Maybe it's different for everybody.
Yeah, we strongly believe in short form content. A lot of the content we are consuming today in audio, it can be very long, right? A podcast and an audiobook can be very long, and we see this weird thing where consumers are now being used to a short TikTok video or a short reel on Instagram, but they're also listening to this very long content on audiobooks and podcasts. So we see an opportunity to create much shorter content that is relevant to you. And what's interesting is that the way we think about content is that people consume content in two different ways. One of them is because it comes from an author or a creator that you like, and that's how we see people consume podcasts or YouTube videos, where you like this creator and you want to listen to what they have to say or the format that they produce content in, right? And so that's really relevant where people want to do that. And we don't see AI doing that in the same way. The way we come in is the other way, in which like sometimes you want to consume content because of the topic. Again, maybe you want to learn about neuroscience or how to get into venture capital or the latest AI models, right? There are different things that you might be interested in, and those are topic specific. And so that's where we come in, where we create the content based on the topic. And in terms of the length, we do aim for a short audiobook. This is usually 2 minutes to 20 minutes for the most part. But the sweet spot today, I would say, is around 8 minutes. This is like
Okay.
short, and we see enough sources to create that length, and people
So
like
so more
that.
of an audio pamphlet.
Yeah, exactly. It's very short, but it also allows for continuation of
Right.
continuing to that. Where like if you start with this topic, there might be a sequel to that, or there might be a like an adjacent topic that you can go dive into. And so whenever we create a mini audiobook, we provide you 5 related topics so you can continue that
Nice.
journey. And so the idea is not that you stop with the 8-minute one, is that you continue with another one and continue your own journey, because we know that looks differently with each person. And we kind of see this today with Wikipedia, right? Like people
Mhm.
start with like this Wikipedia rabbit holes where you start with a topic and you like continue diving in and end up somewhere else. Or with YouTube, where you start with a video and you end up going in a different route. And that's how people use any topic today as well, where like they go dive into different areas that it depends on your preference and what you're like looking to learn here.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That whole, you got to give something somewhere to go when they've sort of finished what they're doing. That's very key. So, what? Let's get into the tech a little bit, if you don't mind. You're obviously using AI at different stages of this whole experience. Is there any particular model that you found is good for either the curation or the output? Is it something open source? Is it commercial? To the extent you can tell me, like, I'd just love to know what you're using.
Yeah. we've experimented a lot with different models, and today we use a few different models to create one of these mini audiobooks. And it's always changing, to be honest, because we try to find the highest quality ones. And so, like I mentioned, there's different steps to this process. First, the finding part, and for that part where we like evaluate what's relevant, we've fine-tuned our own model with our own data to figure out what's relevant. And that part is a really challenging problem that we continue to get better at and improving. But we fine-tuned OpenAI for that one. We've also looked at Anthropic, Claude. We've looked at Llama for different steps of the process, and we continue to switch. But today we leverage the biggest ones as well as our own trained ones that we fine-tuned. And for the voice models, we leverage Whisper from OpenAI as well as 11 Labs, which we think that 11 Labs today is the highest quality voice model out there. And it sounds like very human. So that's why we preferred that one.
Nice. So just because it's the hottest thing going around right now, and I have to ask, using the O1 model, you must have messed around with it. It's probably,
Right.
I'm sure it's not in the product because they're throttling it and all this stuff, but it is. Have you noticed that it produces any better results, either O1 or O1 Mini?
Yeah, we've been experimenting with that. It definitely does a really good job at certain topics, right? And that sort of reasoning ability that it has advantages for more complex and scientific topics. We still like early for us. We're like testing to see if it's better than our current one. Um, but so far, it's produced good results for some topics, but not for all of them. I think it does have some gaps when it comes to specific questions or things that we look at. So we'll have to see if we end up using it in our pipeline. But it's really interesting for sure, and I think it has its own use cases.
Nice. So I have to ask, just because we're on the technology, obviously hallucinations, big deal in AI. How do you ensure the output is good and accurate?
Yeah, we look at sources that are already popular today. We look at how different platforms are ranking this content, such as Google or news platforms, right? If an article is already being read by a lot of people and is ranking high on Google, then it probably has more trustworthy content. And we leverage that and try to include it. We also look at repetition. Are multiple sources saying the same thing on a topic? And if so, then that's more reliable. And that's also the biggest part for us is like we're not using one source per audiobook. We're usually using a few different ones, and that's because we're going to give you a very comprehensive overview on that topic.
Right.
So you will very unlikely see just one source per content, and that allows us to just offer a lot of different perspectives. And people try it for controversial topics, like politics, war, and these things, and it usually does a good job at like giving you an unbiased overview. And that's how we've trained and prompt these models to just be very unbiased and try to give you a lot of different sides on the same topic. But it's LLMs, it's AI, and it can still fail
Mhm.
and hallucinate at some points. We're just working hard to make sure that that's not the case.
Yeah, and it sounds like the nature of what you're doing, you're essentially using AI to search and curate and then do some language on top of that. It's not really going into its knowledge base per se. I think this is a subtle but a very important distinction when sort of you're getting information out of an AI service. Like, what exactly is it doing? And I think it's maybe not common knowledge, but generally, if you're going into the knowledge base, that's always sort of the more the minefield for hallucinations, and you're more applying the language to search.
Yeah,
Correct?
absolutely. That's a very important distinction. We don't believe so much in AI generated content. We believe in AI reformatted content. We
Mm,
envision a future where the content you're consuming is being reformatted and personalized to your needs, whether it's text to audio, text to video, or in different languages. But the core content that you're consuming is still from a human source or something that's reliable, and that's a big distinction in what we do and what we believe in.
nice. So you mentioned you use 11 Labs and their voice technology. Is there a level of customization that the user can do? Is there like a particular voice that you guys have settled on or set of voices? Obviously, it's, like I was saying earlier, that sort of connection, whether it's real or not, with the voice that's speaking to you, is definitely a whole part of the experience. How have you calibrated around that?
Yeah, this is surprisingly hard. People have different preferences on voices. Like that's just how it is. It's just people are used to different things. People are used to different languages, and we've tested a bunch ourselves. We don't always agree on what's a good voice and what's not a good voice. Like it just really depends on the person. And today we just choose one of the ones that we found to be the highest quality that people also like. But in the future, we'll allow more customization where you can choose your own voice that you prefer and also just switch between different voices. So it also makes it more engaging. Just using one voice makes it feel repetitive and like the same thing versus using a lot of different styles and a lot of different voices is different. And we also found that each voice has a style attached to it, right? Like there's sort of like the way you speak and the way you talk, there's a certain personality attached to it. And so what we've actually looked deep into is how can you create a personality or a biography for each voice, and how does that affect the content, right? So if you're listening to an AI related audiobook versus a sports related one, the voice should be different and the personality should be different, right? Like you don't expect the same type of person to talk about both things. And so something that's really exciting for us and very interesting is that we're going to look into this more, into how can you create this AI voice and personalities that create different styles of content that you consume.
Nice. That's a cool idea. So I really like the whole concept of it because you mentioned, this is going much further really than a spoken article. And I feel like for most of media companies right now, that's where they're at, right? This is happening. It's more and more common now. I think the New York Times has pretty much got it on every article now. You can listen to the article in audio form. Washington Post is doing some of it. A few others are doing it, and because it's so easy. And I totally like. I'm not trying to knock that. It's just like, okay, that's good, showing more flexibility. But what's the next level? And I feel like you've sort of cracked the next level, right? It's kind of like, well, you might almost think of it as I sometimes I haven't thrown this term around a lot, but it's almost like a content polymorph, like in that you have this article or set of articles or just sort of a corpus of information, and yes, it's all done with text, but like an AI applied to that, extracting the key bits of information tailored to the person's preferences, that sort of seems like where things are going or converging in just our use of AI. It's all about reducing the friction to the thing that you want. Obviously, this is creating very some contentious things around copyright, and we should talk about those a little bit. But I do like this vision of like, oh, there's information out there, but I, as a reader and consumer of it, have my own schedule and preferences and whatever. What is the thing in between that's going to process it and give it to me in the format I want? And like you're starting with audio, but I honestly could see this kind of idea applied to multiple different media. Is that I imagine you've thought about this a little bit in terms of, I know you're kind of at the beginning of your journey, but like, but just to kind of like, there's got to be a vision here, right? And I feel like that's kind of where this is all going.
Absolutely. One thing that's really interesting is that for the first time ever, since just the history of humanity, like content that has been created has always been static. You know, readers, listeners, consumers consume this content in the format that it was written in, right? Like you read an article the way it was written, you watch a video the way it was recorded, and that's the way it's always worked. But for the first time ever, this is changing where instead of being from the creator to the consumer, you can start thinking about how you can do it from the consumer backwards of like, okay, what is
Hmm.
my need as a consumer and how can I consume this content that is in a way like you're saying more personalized to me. And that's what we think is really exciting, where content is going to become much more dynamic, right? Where it doesn't matter the language something was written in, the length, the format, things can be reshaped to the consumer. And that's really exciting, where it's also not specific to a source where like something you consume is limited to a specific article or to a specific website. You can add more context from other sources, mix, translate, and reformat to audio, to video, and different styles of entertainment, right? And that's definitely where we want to go. We see an opportunity to really reshape the way you consume content. And for us, audio is a great way to start because we see the gaps on like how you can consume that content, but it will definitely expand. And for us, we do think that more and more companies are going to be creating this audio content like podcasts and audiobooks. And I'm sure you've seen NotebookLM from Google, that they're like,
Yeah,
creating
absolutely.
podcasts, and it's super exciting. I think there's a lot of that's going to happen there. But for us, our focus is in two things. One of them, personalization. We're going to enter this era where there's going to be unlimited content on any topic, right? Like the internet is going to continue to get even bigger, and it's just going to be content on everything in every language in a lot of different formats. And so what becomes the question is like, what is relevant to you as a consumer? Like, what do you consume and why? And with this unlimited choices, how do you pick something that can help you be entertained or grow personally or grow professionally? And I think that's going to become a lot harder. And we're starting to look into how can you recommend the right thing at the right time to the right consumer and in the right format, right? And so that's going to be the things that we're going to be exploring. And the other one is the community aspect of it. We want to explore that more of like, how can I connect with people that are interested in the same topics? How can I get recommendations from other people that might be into the same things? And how does that help the platform, and how does that change the things that I choose to consume? And so there's a lot of things there that are, today a little more abstract and more general, but we're interested into, diving more into those and how that affects the content consumption. Because as a vision for any topic, we believe that there is this big opportunity to transform the internet into different formats, into more personalized mediums that are relevant to you. And we think that's going to be audio, it's going to be video in different formats, but we believe that there's a lot that's going to be happening there, and want to make sure that it's personalized to you and according to your needs.
It's just super exciting, and thanks for mentioning the community aspect. That's actually something I hadn't thought too much about before, because you get to sort of zone in on like people in their bubbles and their preferences and doing stuff. But there's actually another sort of component to actually fostering community too, if it's done the right way. I really like that. So, but it is as exciting as it is to people like you and me. I definitely can see a sort of traditionalists like kind of get a little freaked out by like, kind of like what we're saying. Like, wait a minute, is that all this information just going to be in a soup now? And now I'm like, and honestly, even putting aside the hallucinations and potential mistakes. Just assume everything is actually correct in terms of this stuff. Are you losing something? I guess that would be sort of the criticism or the fear that people would think. It's like, I tell stories, they're usually this long, or I usually, I'm a master of text, or I do really good videos. And now do I want people consuming my content in these other formats that I didn't even think about? And there's like people, they might call them purists, I guess, thinking about like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a part of this future. What would you say to folks that are sort of feeling that way? Maybe not in an extreme way, but just a little uneasy about this sort of like amorphous future we're alluding to.
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and I share that concern, to be honest, right? It's like something that feels scary and different. And the way we think about it is, that content that people create is not going to go away. Videos and news and just the way we consume content, specifically more artistic content like poems, right? I think that's going to become even more meaningful, right? Like as humans, we care about that human connection of like, this author wrote this, right? And I want to connect with the author and the content that they wrote, or like, I like this person and watch their podcast, I want to listen to that. And we honestly don't see that going away. We actually think that that'll become more meaningful. And I think one way I think about this is it is expanding the sort of space instead of like limiting it, in the sense that if you think about arts, right? Like obviously we've had different types of arts. Initially you had paintings, and now we have like a lot of different types of art. Like we went to like digital art, we went to like NFTs and like a lot of different things, right? But it's like it doesn't take away from the paintings, it doesn't take away from the sculptures, and I would say it makes them even more meaningful, right? Like when I see a painting that was just painted by a human, that's much more meaningful to me than an AI generated photo or like an AI generated image. Like there's something artistic about it, and I think that's going to happen in some ways with content, where people are going to wanting to be connected with the creators and the content, and that's going to be even more meaningful. But when it comes to us and what we do is that the way we thought about it is there's two paths. One path is like all of this unlimited AI generated content that is, basically diminishes the human generated content. It just makes it less and less, and there's just more and more and more AI generated content. And that feels concerning. And the other path that we think is more exciting is we can support this human generated content, but allow it to reach more people. And so for us, with audio, it's like, yeah, like it is, your content is going to be listened to in a new way, but we think that that's allowing your content to be consumed by even more people, right? Like this is people that wouldn't be reading your article otherwise because they only have the time to listen to this in an audio format. Like this is reaching new ears. And for us, we do care about the original source. For any given mini audiobook, we link at the sources so that you can go dive deeper if you want. We always care about that sort of like original source. And so yeah, so we believe in that, on like preserving the human generated content, but allowing that to expand into a lot of different formats that allow the consumer to consume that in new ways. And I think there's a lot of concerning things there and like risks that it's a larger conversation that doesn't involve just us, as a company. But I think the internet is changing, and I think we have a job to do it in the right way.
Yeah, and there's a lot in what you were just talking about there. Just to zero in on one thing, which I sort of touched on really briefly earlier, is that if you are a creator, beyond sort of the Puritan sort of aspect that some people might have, people just want to know that they're being fairly compensated. Frankly, like it's like, okay, the AI engines, whatever they are, whether it's yours or someone else's, is sort of using their stuff, turn it into some kind of summary, and how they monetize is usually tied to some aspect of an interaction, whether it's traffic or what have you, right? So this is obviously a big thing right now. Like, they're seeing licensing deals with the bigger players like OpenAI. Perplexity is kind of a publisher's program. All this is at the very beginning, but of course, everyone, let's get it right at the beginning so that we're not freaking out when it's a big thing. How do you see that? How does AnyTopic treat that? Recognizing you guys are closer to the beginning of your journey, but how are you sort of thinking about the economy around this sort of content polymorph stuff that we're talking about?
I think there needs to be a solution to this. I don't know that licensing is the solution that will stick, right? I think it's a really good start to pay these publishers for their content, but I think it's a much larger conversation that involves the whole internet, right? Like what does it mean to put content out there and for an AI to use that in different ways? I think for us, yeah, we're at the beginning where we have a lot of stuff to figure out before we get there, right? We're not even monetizing yet. But as we think about revenue, we do hope to compensate creators in some way, right? Like whatever that looks like, we'll either stick to whatever solution is available then. And if there's nothing available at that point for us, we'll create our own, right? Like, how can we pay these creators for that? We don't have a solution to it because we do think that it involves a few companies and just the overall market as a whole of like media. But I do hope that it's a conversation that I know people are having and that even the government is like considering and like talking about. So I think there's going to be something there that I hope it's getting solved, and we will be participating and supporting creators as best as we can. But I don't know what the solution is yet, and I think it's something that needs to be discussed and explored further.
Hmm. So obviously you're not monetizing yet. Good time to check out any topic for anyone because it's a free service. But who are your customers? Who's the average user these days?
Yeah, we see a few different people using this. One of them is current podcast and audiobook listeners, where they're looking for more personalized entertainment that is like shorter. People use it for that. We see very driven professionals that care a lot about their work in the industry coming to, learn about job specific topics. We see auditory learners, sometimes people with ADHD or dyslexia that have a need for audio content, come to our platform and get audio content on different topics. And we see a lot of people using this for personal development. How can I grow as a person in different ways? And whatever you might be doing for life, whether you're a student or a professional, you can come to like acquire that knowledge in a faster way. And we've seen really exciting ways in which people use this, right? Like we've talked to a lot of users. There's been a student, for instance, a high school student that mentioned that they're just a normal high school student and that oftentimes they don't understand the topics that the professor is talking about, but they come to AnyTopic to putting the topic in biology or math, and AnyTopic does a better job at explaining that than the
Hmm.
professor sometimes for them. Or we see people that write blogs come to any topic to come up with new ideas for content they want to write, right? Like just like sort of like keep up with that. Or we see people that work in cybersecurity in a very niche area of that they need to keep up with the latest regulations and the latest developments in that, and they use any topic to get frequent audiobooks about that topic, and they can keep up with that topic in that way. So there's been a lot of different ways in which people use it, and it's been incredibly exciting to see that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, do you see the potentially any kind of like enterprise or business version of this, or are you going to be sort of strictly B2C?
We've seen people like businesses reach out for those kind of use cases where they want to either use existing content in their library or website and reformat that into audio and sharing that with customers or their own clients. We might explore that in the future. Right now we're very focused on audio and sorry on consumers, and we think that there's a big opportunity there, but we're not going away from B2B. I think there's potential there, so we might explore it further.
Nice. So we've touched a lot on future stuff. I usually like to leave on what's your vision of the future, but I kind of think we've covered it. But I guess I would ask, for any topic specifically. We talked a little bit about potential enterprise, but I also feel like this is almost like I say a middle layer, like what you're doing to a lot of different things, the way people sort of want content. So do you see potentially that idea that it's less sort of a brand in it itself and more something that empowers this kind of content altering and more reformatting experience across all kinds of platforms? Is that a potential future for you guys?
Yeah, I think we will be exploring other formats. We are right now really focused on how can we personalize that experience more for the consumer, right? How can you get that right content in the right format for you, and allow you to discover that. Like it's hard for you to always have a topic in mind on what you want to consume, and so we want to create more discoverability and shareability of content in our platform, as well as ways like I mentioned before, community. Like we think that there's people that are really passionate about curating things and putting things together, and we want to allow people to do that in our platform where you might know the best way to build morning habits because you've been thinking about it for the past 10 years. You might know the best newsletters, the best articles, the best content on this topic. You might want to curate this for other people, but putting that in audio format. So we might let people do more of that and allow them to share it with others. Because something that's been really interesting for us is we see a lot of people share this content with other people. A lot of our users just
Mhm.
come to our platform organically. And if you think about audio content, podcasts, and audiobooks, that's not really shared too much today because the content is too long. And people, if I share a podcast with a friend, it might be too long for them to listen to. And I kind of feel bad if they don't listen to it, or you feel bad if don't listen to it. But for short content, like if it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you can share that with someone and hopefully they'll listen to it and have some thoughts. And we see a lot of this happening where people create their own audiobook and then they share it with other people for them to consume. And so we want to enable this more and more where we think that AI can have a good sense on what's interesting to you and give you those recommendations. But we think that this human element of like, I know what's interesting and like I'm interested in this and I know how to curate the best content. We think that that also matters and we want to enable people to do that more. And so something interesting that we've seen as well is Spotify recently added comments to podcasts. For the first time, you can like comment on whatever episode you're interested in, and obviously YouTube lets you comment on whatever podcast you watch. And so there's like this conversation that happens around the content that's really interesting, and we want to allow more of that too. We recently added ratings to episodes where you can rate it from 1 star to 5 stars, and that allows us to get an idea of like, okay, which content is good, which is not so good, and how can we recommend that to other people. Because like I mentioned, the content is becoming really large and it's going to be unlimited and infinite content on the internet. So how can you really curate the best parts for people?
Nice. And it's nice to know the star ratings are sticking around
Yeah.
in this new era. Daniel, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for dropping by. Where can people find any topic on the internet?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. This has been great. Any topic, you can go to anytopic.com. You can try it on the web, or you can look up any topic on the App Store and install it for free and try it out.
All right. There you heard it here. Thanks, folks, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Daniel Rascon. If you want to check out Any Topic, head on over to AnyTopic.com and tell them I sent you. And if you like what you heard, please just take a minute to leave a rating and review for the Media Copilot in your podcast app. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Media Copilot newsletter and check out MediaCopilot.ai for our classes on AI for journalists, marketers, and content creators. Be seeing you in the future.